Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom Abrach, and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Daled. We're 6 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Gufa. We just learned Boi Rav Bibi Bar Abaye. Rav Bibi asked the following shaila: what's going to be in a case of hidbik pas betaner? If one pasted the dough into the oven, and now he would like to remove it prior to baking, prior to it resulting in the melacha of oife. Can he do so or not? He tiru lo l'rdoisa koidim sheyavoy l'idei chiyav chatas elo yitiru. Did the Chacham allow him to remove the dough, which involves doing a Yesed Rabbanan? It's a shvus redeas hapas. Removing the bread from the oven is a shvus Yesed Rabbanan. So this person has 2 options in front of him. Should he leave it as is, let the dough bake through and result in a melacha deraisa of oife, or should he go ahead and actively remove the dough prior to completes and bakes and becomes and results in an issa melacha deraisa, although he's going to be doing issa derabanan in the process? So what's better? Sheva al tasa, sit and do nothing and let it result and conclude in a melacha deraisa, or better kum v'aseh, get up and do something to prevent it from resulting in a melacha deraisa, even though by removing the dough he's going to be doing a issa derabanan. So again, hidvik pas betaner, one who attached the dough into the oven, he tir lo l'rdoisa. Did the Chacham allow, did they provide an allowance, an exemption from their ordinary issur of redeas hapas? In this case, they did allow him to do that koidim sheyavoy l'idei chiyav chatas, so that he does not come to a chiyav chatas. If the bread bakes, he will have to bring a chatas. Or perhaps no, they were steadfast in their issur and did not allow any exceptions, even in this case, and he must leave it as is, even though it will result in a melacha which requires him to be a chatas. What is the context of this shaila? What are we speaking about? We're speaking about that the person pasted the dough into the oven, unintentionally, perhaps he forgot that it was Shabbos. Even now, he has not yet come to the realization. He's still right now in a state of mind of a shogeg. He has not yet realized that it was Shabbos. If so, what's the shaila? Leman hitiru. Who's coming to ask the question? To who do we need to make the allowance? If he hasn't realized that he did something wrong, so what's the point of this question here? Ve'elo lav dihada v'itkar. Apparently he came to the realization, so he pasted it unintentionally. The hadbakas pasvatana was done b'shogeg. Now he came around and realized, hey, it was Shabbos, and he regrets what he did. He wants to go turn around and pull it out of the oven. Says the Gemara, what's the shaila? Do we allow him to do that so he doesn't come to bring a chatas? This case would not entail a chiyav chatas regardless. Says the Gemara, mi mechayev? Can a person be chayev a chatas in such a situation? V'atanan, haven't we learned in the Mishnah? Kol chayav b'chatois o chayav b'chatas. Einan chayavin ela ad shetehei tchilas and shkaga v'seiv and shkaga. In order for a person to bring a chatas, it needs to be that the entire malacha was b'shogeg, was unintentional, from the beginning all the way to the end. But if at some point during the asiyas malacha he was no more a shogeg, he came to realization and he was aware of what's going on, this case does not require chatas. Says Gemara, in our situation as well, if you maintain that initially the adbakas pas betaner was b'shogeg, was unintentional, but then somewhere in the middle of the process, in the middle of the baking process, prior to the completion of the afiyas hapas, he came around and realized, hey, it's Shabbos, and he would like to remove his dough so that he doesn't incur a chiyav chatas. In this case, says the Gemara, there would be no chiyav chatas regardless of whether he removes it or not, because since the seif of the malacha, the end of the malacha, was not a shogeg any longer, there's no chiyav chatas. So why do we frame the shaila as, is he allowed to remove it so he doesn't come to a chatas? There's no chatas in this case regardless. It says Ella must be speaking on b'mezid. It was done b'mezid. he was madbik the pas bataner intentionally, and now he regrets his action, and he wants to turn around and take it out of the oven before it bakes. Says the Gemara, if so, why do you say that the concern is chatas? If so, you should word it differently. The question should be presented as a skila question. Is he allowed to remove the dough before he incurs a yisur skila? That's by stoning, which is the einish for one who commits performs a malacha. B'mezid. Certainly we're speaking about a shoygeg. He was madbik the pas unintentionally, and even now he has not realized his mistake. If so, who's coming to ask the shayla? Ulamani tiru, lachirim, to somebody else. Somebody else, his friend witnessed the event, and he comes running. He wants to save his friend from incurring a chiv chatos. He wants to stop the malacha in its tracks. So he's coming to ask the shayla, and he wants to know whether he's allowed to go and remove the dough and do a shvus, a sudabanan, in order to prevent his friend from coming to a malacha and issa deraisa, which involves bringing a chatos. Says the Gemara, Maskiv Rav Sheshes. Could you even have a havamina that Ruvain will do a isser drabanan in order to prevent his friend from coming to an isser deraisa? Do we tell a person, we struck a person to make a chet, to transgress an isser, in this case a isser of rudias hapas, so that your friend should benefit from it? There's no havamina, there's no makam, there's no place to even suggest such an idea. How could one person go ahead and do a chet in order to benefit somebody else? His responsibility to his friend doesn't extend that far. He may not do a chet in order to help his friend. And Taisus points out, although we do find such phenomena elsewhere in Shas, for instance, Taisus says a case where a chaver, a prominent person, a person who is a chaver, a reliable person, who instructs an amaretz, an unlearned fellow, to fill up a basket of fruit. It turns out the fruit is tevel. So the chaver wants to help the amaretz, wants to prevent him from coming to an issa, eating the tevel, the fruit which there was no tumas u'maisis separated from it. The Gemara says the chaver will go ahead and do the tumas u'maisis even at a distance, even though that's less than ideal. One is meant to do the hafrashas tumas u'maisis min hamukav, in close proximity to the tevel. Nevertheless, the chaver is willing to do that. Why? Says the Gemara, Taisus brings it, because the chaver is nichle lechaver. He's willingly avad iser kalila, to do a light iser, a less stringent iser of doing the tumas u'maisis from a distance, in order to prevent the amaretz from performing a greater iser, from eating tevel, which is a much more severe form of iser. So we see this type of phenomenon where one person will do an iser to save somebody else from doing a greater avera. Taisus there is different, because we're speaking about before the fact, before the event. The chaver has within his ability to prevent an issa from occurring. Therefore, certainly he's meant to do anything in his power to prevent his friend from doing an avera. In our case, says Taisus, it's different. The ma'isa malach, the issa was already done. The pas is already in the tanar. It's a question of now undoing that. That we don't do. We don't tell a person to do an avera in order to undo the avera which was already performed by his friend. Another Taisus says another teretz, oidei shleimar, says Taisus, dafka hecha de pasha. Only in a case where a person was negligent. In that case we say, well, if Reuven was negligent, for instance, in the case where he put the pas in the tanar, even if it was speaking about a shoygig, according to this stage in the Gemara, nevertheless, Taisus calls it a pasha because he was negligent and he should have been more careful. So dafka in this case, we don't tell another person to do an isser in order to undo the pshia done by his friend. He's not responsible to do that. He's not achroi for his friend to that extent. However, in a case where a person wasn't pesheya, wasn't negligent, in that case, certainly his friend should come help him out, even if it involves incurring a isser, an isser kal, for example. Taisus brings two cases. The Gemara Pesachim tells us that a kohen is meant to be makriv the carbon for a mechusa kapara. If a tamei needs to bring a carbon and for some reason it got delayed until later on in the day of Erev Pesach, it's already after the tamei sheben harbayim was brought. We know we're not meant to bring another carbon. After that krova of the tamei sheben harbayim, there's an isser say involved. Nevertheless, the Gemara tells us that the kohen is meant to be makriv the carbon for the mechusar kippurim. Why? Because this will enable the mechusar kippurim to eat the carbon pesach that night. So therefore, it's better. We prefer that the kohen does an iser kal, he's over an iser asay by bringing this carbon so late in the day, in order to allow the mechusar kippurim to eat his pesach and not incur a iser kares, because ignoring a pesach involves kares. So we see this a type of example where a kohen will do a iser kal to prevent an iser chomer from his friend, because over there the mechusar kippurim was not pesheya. Therefore, certainly the kohen should do the iser kal to help him and prevent him from coming to iser chomer. Another example Taisus brings in the Gemara in Eruvin, where a kohen finds a wart, a yabeles, and he can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash. It's a mum. His friend will go ahead and bite it off with his teeth, even though that involves a shvus, it's a drabanan. Nevertheless, he's allowed to do it on Shabbos to enable his friend to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. There too is an example where his friend was not pesheya, was not negligent in bringing about the situation. So certainly his friend is meant to help him out in this manner. However, in our case of Taisus, where the person was madbik pasbetaner, he was pesheya, it was an act of negligence. Therefore, certainly the Gemara maintains that we will not tell somebody else to go do an iser kal, even if it's a less severe iser, like iser drabanan of radias apas, just so that he'll prevent his friend from coming to an iser chomer. So getting back to the Gemara, how could it be, says the Gemara, that we will tell somebody, how could you even suggest this notion of instructing somebody to do an iser drabanan for the sake of benefiting his friend, the friend who put the pas into the tanner? So that can't be the context of the shaila. It says in more Ella Omar Bashi, Lo'il b'mezid. Certainly we're speaking about b'mezid. The person put the bread in the oven, b'mezid. If so, the question was regarding the wording. It's not a chatas, it's an issue of skila. It says, well, you're right, ve'ema, let's read as follows. Koidim sheyava de'eser skila. The question is whether he can quickly go ahead and pull out the pas from the tanner before the bread bakes, and he will incur an iser skila, because it was amazing. Indeed, says the Gemara of Achaber the Rava, Masla Behedya, he learned the Shaila in this manner very clearly. And as Rashi says, Rav Acha's version was that it wasn't the Shaila at all, it was actually a statement. Omar Vibar Abaye, Hidbik Pas Betaner. If one pastes the pas in the tanner on Shabbos, he tiraloi liridaisa koidem shiyava yadisa. He was madbik the pas b'mezit, and he comes around and he regrets and he wants to quickly undo his action, pull out the pas before it bakes. Certainly the Gemara says we do allow him to do that. He tiraloi liridaisa koidem shiyava yadisa skila, because it is better to be marred the pas, to remove the pas, which only involves a issa d'rabbanan, in order to prevent him from coming to an issa d'raisa. And in the case of mezit, it's a issa d'raisa which involves skila. Now, tell you esakasha. How could the Gemara even have a havamina? Why is the Gemara presented as a shaila? Do we allow him to remove the pas, or do we not allow him to do the pas? If we're speaking about that he did it b'mezit and it involves skila, if he leaves it in there and it bakes, he will get skila. He will receive capital punishment from Bezin. So Taisus asked, of course, the person won't listen to us. What's the tzutz in the Gemara? Do we allow or don't we allow him to remove the bread? Certainly he's going to go ahead and remove it. He doesn't want to get killed, he doesn't want to get skila. So he certainly won't listen to us. Pshita says Taisus, Shelo yishma lanu. This person won't listen to us. If we prohibit him from removing the pas. Says Taisus a chiddush. If the halacha would be that we don't allow this fellow to remove his pas, he will not get issa skila. He will not get skila. Why? Because the reason why he's not removing the pas is as a result of the issa d'rabbanan. The Rabbanan prevented him from removing the pas from the oven, and therefore he will never get skila in this case. Taisus brings another example found in the Gemara in Psachim, that the Gemara relates situations where a person was prevented from bringing a Karban Pesach on account of Issa d'Rabbanan. Says Taisus there too, he will not get kares. He will not be held accountable for not bringing his Karban Pesach, because What is the reason for him not bringing the carbon? Is because of the Issa D'Rabbanan. He was prevented by the Issa D'Rabbanan on account of a rabbinic decree. Therefore, he receives no kares as a result. Here too, says Tosfos, if the halacha indeed would be that we don't allow him, we don't make an exception, we don't have an allowance for this person, and he cannot remove the pas from the tanur, he certainly will not get skila. So apparently, according to Tosfos, when the Gemara discusses the question of removing the pas so he doesn't come to skila, it doesn't mean actually skila. It means that he shouldn't come to do an isser in the category of an isser skila, because the actual skila he'll never get if we don't allow him to remove the bread. But it means the Gemara means to say that it's a severe malacha. It's a malacha which carries a potential skila. It's a very stringent malacha, and therefore, do we allow him to remove the pas so he doesn't come to complete this severe form of a malacha, which generally includes skila, although in this case, certainly, skila will not be applied. So in summary, we had a case of a person was madbik pas betanur, and the Gemara wanted to figure out the context of the shaila. Do we allow him to remove the pas or not? Initially, the Gemara said it was speaking about that it was b'shoigeg, and v'lei niskar, he has not yet realized his mistake. If so, says the Gemara, who's coming to ask the shaila? If he doesn't even realize, so certainly he's not coming to ask the shaila. Says the Gemara, okay, we're speaking about that he put it to b'shoigeg, but now he realized his mistake, so he's coming to ask us whether he can remove it. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, there will be no chatas, because part of the malacha was done after his realization, and a chata is only brought when there's a shogeg from beginning to end. The Gemara went to the next possibility, was speaking about that he put it in b'shogeg, and he never realized as of yet. However, the question is la'achirim. A stranger wants to come along and remove the pas to prevent the other fellow from doing the malacha. The Gemara ruled that out, negated that. Certainly, another person cannot do an aveira, an isser, to help someone else. Finally, Gemara said, certainly we're speaking about that the person was madbik b'mezit, it was intentional. The question is, can he remove it before it comes, like deis askila? And the conclusion of the Gemara, according to the version of Rav Achbei, the Rava, was that yes, indeed, we're speaking about mezit, and certainly we allow him to remove the pas from the tanur, even though it involves this Rabbanan, so that he doesn't come to a more severe form of malacha, which carries a potential skila. Continues the Gemara. Pasha the Anes Yadai, the Mishnah related a case where the Ani picks up an item from the Rishus HaRabim and extends it into Rishus HaYachid and puts it into the hand of the Balabayas. So the Hanacha took place in the hand of the Balabayas. Or we have another case where the Ani performed a complete malacha. He took an item from the Balabayas' hand and took it back outside and deposited it onto the Rishus HaRabim. So the Akira, in this case, took place from the hand of the Balabayas. Says the Gemara, how can these cases involve a Malacha D'Oraisa with a Chatos? Amai Chayav, why is he Chayav? When he makes a Hanacha on somebody's hand, or he does an Akira from somebody's hand. Amai Chayav. We know that there's a requirement of a makam which is 4 by 4 tefachim, a makam chashiv. For it to be considered an akira, it needs to be uprooted, lifted from a makam that is arba al arba. The item has to be resting on a makam chashiv, a significant makam which is the size of 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. The akira needs to take place from that makam. Otherwise, it doesn't have the status of akira regarding the melacha veitzah. The same thing regarding hanacha. The item needs to be placed on a makam which has a size, an area of 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, which is a makam chashiv. Therefore, in this case of the Mishnah, that the akira or the hanacha took place from or on one's hand, that certainly is not a makam that has 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. That is not a makam chashiv. And it is not considered to be a ma'isa hakira or a ma'isa hanacha regarding the melacha veitzah. What is the source of this requirement of dal dal? Tosfos brings that since the melacha veitzah is sourced in the pasuk of al yetei shmim kaimai, and we dash al yetei shmim kaimai, don't take out a kli from its place. Mimkaimai, we darshan that mimkaimai is referring to the place of the chayfetz. The chayfetz, the object, needs to have its place. It needs to be positioned in its place. And Tosfos says the minimum of a makom chashav is dalad, and therefore, in order for it to be considered haitzah, the chayfetz needs to be uprooted, lifted from a makom of dalad. It needs to be the makom of the chayfetz. And therefore, in our case, we don't have that. So why does the Mishnah say that there's a chiv chatas? The point of dalad, the Farshim explain, is that haitzah means uprooting an item, changing the location of the item. Until now, it was designated to be used in this place. It was part and parcel of this location. The shimush of this chayfetz was connected with its current environment. Now the akira goes ahead and uproots it, lifts it away from its current environment, from its location. It detaches it, it disables it, it delinks it, it disengages it from this place. By doing so, it removes it from its current designation. It changes the designation of the chayfetz. It's not anymore providing shimush. It's not anymore serving this location. It's going to be removed from this location and going to be replaced, going to be deposited in a different location. It's going to serve one in the new location. That is the transformation that takes place in the designation, in the shimush, in the usage of the item during the malacha beitzah. Therefore, there's a requirement of akira from a makom chashav. Since the item was in this makom, it belonged to this place, it was designated to be used in this place, the akira uproots it and detaches it from this place. By doing so, it transforms the usage, the identity of the chayfetz. It is not serving this place any longer. And then you go ahead and make the hanacha. You deposit it in a new location, in a makom dalad. Now it relates to its new place. It's designated to be used in that place, in that makom chashav. That is the essence of the malacha beitzah. Therefore, certainly it needs to be coming from a place, makom dalad. It needs to be placed on a makom dalad. Otherwise, it's not a malacha beitzah. Says Gemara, so how do we understand our Mishnah? Amar Rava, okay, we have actually a shita, an author for our Mishnah, who holds that there's no requirement of arba laba. Who's that? Amar Rabba Hamani. Who is the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Kiva. The Amar Loi Be'inon Mokim Arba Laba. There's no requirement of dal, and therefore even doing an akira from one's hand or making hanoch on one's hand is sufficient for melech zaitzah. What do we find? The shita of Rabbi Kiva says the Gemara, this not. Hazurek Rishus Hayachid, one who throws an item from one Rishus Hayachid across the Rishus Harabim over into another Rishus Hayachid. So we have a Rishus Harabim that is stationed between two Rishus Hayachids on either side. He is Zurek from Rishus Hayachid on this side of the Rishus Harabim over to the Rishus Hayachid on the other side, Rishus Harabim Ba'emtza, and in the middle we have Rishus Harabim. So the item traveled through the airspace of Rishus Harabim. It never actually landed in Rishus Harabim. Is that a malacha? Rabbi Kiva machayev, v'chachamim paitrim. Rabbi Kiva says yes, he's chayev. Chacham say no, it's not a malacha. Apparently, says Rabbi, what does Rabbi Kiva hold? Where was the hanacha? It never landed in Rishus Harabim. Why is this considered to be a malacha? Rabbi Kiva savar amrina, we say kaluta, when an item is captured, it's contained within the airspace of a domain of the Rishus Harabim. Even though it never landed on the actual surface of the Rishus Harabim, kaluta kimishon chadamya. It's equivalent. We equate it to hanacha. Since it was contained in the airspace of the Rishus Harabim, that constitutes hanacha, and that completes the malach vaitzah. Since he did the akira from the Rishus Hayachid, and it passed through the airspace of Rishus Harabim, that is considered to be hanacha, like it landed, it arrived into the Rishus Harabim, and indeed that completes the malacha vaitzah, and he is chayiv. However, the Rabbanan hold no, airspace, that's nothing. Rabbanan savri lo yamrina kluta k'mishon chadamya, simply being contained in the airspace, in the avi Rishus Harabim, flying through Rishus Harabim, that is not k'mishon chadamya. It's not as though it rested in the Rishus Harabim, and therefore there was never a malacha veitzah that took place here. The item traveled from one Rishus Hayachid to the other Rishus Hayachid. There was no akira and hanacha from one Rishus to a different type of rishus? If so, says Rabbah, we have a source for our Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva holds that kluta, being caught in the airspace, is considered to be a hanacha, even though there's no hanacha on a makom dalad dalad. So apparently Rabbi Akiva does not hold of this requirement, and he's the author of our Mishnah. Continues the Gemara. L'meimer, apparently, the pshita leid l'Rabbah, the bekluta k'mishon chadamya. Apparently, Rabbah holds that the interpretation, the context of this machlekes, are Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. In a case where one throws an object from a Rishus HaYachid across the Rishus Ram to the other Rishus HaYachid, is based on this discussion of whether kluta is k'mishon chadamya or not. And ubeseich asara pligi. And the machlekes is regarding a case where the object passed through beseich asara within 10 tefachim of the surface of Rishus HaRabim, which is considered to be the domain of Rishus HaRabim. The Rishus HaRabim extends upward until 10 tefachim. So in that case, that the item passed within 10 tefachim of the surface of Rishus HaRabim, it passed through the Rishus HaRabim, but it hasn't landed on the surface of Rishus HaRabim. That's why there's a machlekes. Rabbi Akiva holds airspace, kluta, is k'mishon chadamya, and is considered to be like a munach on the surface of Rishus HaRabim, and therefore is chayiv. According to Rabban, it's not so. So apparently, Rabbah interpreted this machlekes in this context of throwing the item through Rishus HaRabim b'seich asara, and the question is kluta k'mishon or not. Says the Gemara, is that the true meaning of this machlekes? We find that Rabbah was unsure regarding the context and the setting of the machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and the Rabban. Let's see. The boy Rabbah asked the following question: how do we understand this machlekes? In which case, in what scenario are they arguing? Is it lemata miyud pligi? Are they arguing in a case where the item passed through lemata miyud within 10 tefachim Rishus HaRabim ubaha pligi, and this is the machlekes? Rabbi Akiva savar kluta k'mishon chadamya, Rabbana savar lo yamrinon kluta k'mishon chadamya. That's because it was within 10 tefachim Rishus HaRabim. Aval ba, if the item would have passed higher than tefachim lemala miyud, the Re'akad all agree pater, that he's exempt, he's pater, because higher than yud tefachim is not anymore Rishus HaRabim. We discussed this earlier on Daf Gimel, that above 10 tefachim of Rishus HaRabim is a machem patur. The domain of Rishus HaRabim only extends upward within 10 tefachim. Past 10 tefachim is no more considered Rishus HaRabim, and therefore the item that passes through that area certainly is not considered to be munach Rishus HaRabim. Everybody agrees that will be patur. So this is one way to frame the machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabban. Udekul yam, everybody agrees, lo yalfinan zerek min moishit. We don't derive zerek, throwing an item, from moishit, from passing an item from one person to the next. Now what the Gemara here is referring to is the halacha mentioned later on the Masechta, that there's a form of haitzah, of carrying out an item called moishit, passing an item. The Gemara learns this from the Midbar, from the Digle Midbar, when the Yidden transported the Krashim of the Mishkan. So they would pass, they would be moishit, the keresh from one agola, from one wagon, which had the status of Rishus HaYachid because it was high 10 tefachim. They would pass the keresh from one agola, from one Rishus HaYachid, over across the Rishus HaRabim, over to the next agola, to the next buggy, to the next wagon, which was another Rishus HaYachid. So they passed from Rishus HaYachid over to the Rishus HaYachid across the Rishus HaRabim. And this was above 10 tefachim. It was higher than 10 tefachim of the surface of Rishus HaRabim. Nevertheless, the Gemara teaches us this too is a form of Haitzah, of Amalechas Haitzah, and it is Chayiv, it is Issa Deraisa. We learn this from the Mishkan, from the way they transported the Mishkan in the Midbar. So this is a unique case of Haitzah, even though it involves merely taking an item from one Rishus HaYachid to the other Rishus HaYachid, and it passes over the Rishus HaRabim, but at a great height, higher than 10 tefachim, which is out of bounds of the Rishus HaRabim. Nevertheless, this too is a form of Haitzah, and is considered to be a Mlach and is Chayiv. Says the Gemara, what about if he throws an item in this manner? Instead of passing the item, Because in the Mishkan they only passed the Krushim. Rashi explains the Krushim were too delicate and precious to be thrown around. So they used to pass them. What about if a person chooses to throw an item, to be zerk an item in this manner, from a Rosh Hashanah over to the other Rosh Hashanah, passing over the Rosh Hashanah at a great height, higher than 10 tefachim? Do we derive zerk from Moshe? Do we say just like Moshe passing in this manner is a malacha, so too zerk is very similar and it also is considered to be a malacha? Do we say no? Zerk is an entirely different concept than Moshe. If Moshe is chayiv, zerk is not chayiv. Says the Gemara, Dukuliyam, everybody holds that lo yalfin and zerk from Moshe. According to this interpretation of the machlekes, Kivan Rabbanan, where the scenario involves throwing an item across the Shusarabim, but it is lamata miyut tfachim, within 10 tfachim of the Shusarabim. Machlekes is whether we say kluta k'mishon chadam or not, whether we say an item which passes through the airspace of Shusarabim is considered to be munach. According to Rakiva, yes. According to Rabbanan, no. That's because it's within 10 tfachim. But if you would throw it l'malam miyut tfachim, it would certainly be pater, even though he's throwing it from one Rosh Hashanah over across one Rosh Hashanah over across the Shusarabim into the other Shusarabim. So it's from one Rosh Hashanah to the other Shusarabim passing through Shusarabim. Nevertheless, he's pater because it's not Moshe. He didn't pass it; he threw it. Everybody holds the kuliyama lo yalfin and zerk from Moshe. We don't derive zerk from Moshe, and he's pater. So this is the first approach to explaining the machlekes between Rakiv and Rabbanon. So this is one option. Oidilma, says Rabbah, perhaps the context of the machlekes is entirely different. They were speaking about a case where a person threw an item from Rosh Hashanah across Rosh Hashanah into the other Rosh Hashanah, lemala miyud pligi. They're discussing a case where it flew over the Rosh Hashanah at a great height, lemala miyud, higher than 10. And the machlekes is ubaha pligi. The Rebbe Kiva Savar yalfin and zerk Moshe. He is chayiv in this case. Why? Because we derive a zerek, throwing an item across the Shusarabim at a great height. We derive it from the halacha, from the malacha of Moshe. Just as passing an item in this scenario would be considered to be a malacha, the same thing regarding zerek. So that's where Rebbe Kiva is mechayiv. Rabbanan Savar, no, he's pater lo yalfin and zerek from Moshe. We don't derive zerek from Moshe, even though we find that one who passes an item in this manner is chayiv. That's because he was Moshe. But Zayrik L'malam Yud is pater. So this is the other way to frame the machlekes of Akim and Rabbanan. The issue between them is whether we learn Zayrik from Moshe or not. Because it's speaking about that the item passed over 10 tefachim was L'malam Yud of Rosh Hashanah. But if it would be L'matam Yud, if the item would pass through the airspace of Rosh Hashanah at a low altitude within 10 tefachim of the surface, in that case, all will agree that he is chayev. Why my timer? Everybody will hold. Even the Rabbanan agree to the concept of kluta. When an item is captured within the airspace of the Rosh Hashanah, it is considered to be munach there, considered to have rested. It is kemishon chadamya. So, in summary, Rabbah had two options in the interpretation of the machlekes between Akiva and the Rabbanan. One way to explain the machlekes was that we're speaking about when the item was thrown from Rosh Hashanah across the Rosh Hashanah into the other Rosh Hashanah, and it passed at a low altitude. It was lamata me'asara. Akiva says he's chayev. Why? Because kluto k'mishon chadamya. Because it was captured within the airspace of Rosh Hashanah. It was contained within the aver. That is considered to be munach. The Rabban hold no, he's pater. Being contained in the aver Rosh Hashanah is not kimunach damya. Therefore, it never landed. There was an akira from Rosh Hashanah without an hanach Rosh Hashanah, and therefore he's pater. So this is the first approach in interpreting the machlekes. Therefore, according to this approach, Rebbe Kiva apparently holds that there's no requirement of a mokim dalad for hanacha. Even merely passing through the airspace without landing on a mokim dalad is sufficient to be considered hanacha. So he would be the author of our Mishnah. So this will be the first approach of the machlekes. The second approach was that the machlekes involved an entirely different topic. It's speaking about that the item passed at a high altitude. The machlekes is whether we learn Zurich from Moshe. Rav Akiva says he's chayiv because we derive Zurich from Moshe, just as when one passes an item in this manner, he's chayiv. We learn it from the Krushim and the Mishkan. The same thing regarding Zurich. One throws an item from Rosh Hashanah over across the heights of Rosh Hashanah into the other Shesayach, he's chayiv. According to Rabbanan, he's potter in this case, because although Moshe is chayiv, but Zurich is entirely different, and lo yalfin and Zurich from Moshe. But that's only because the item passed at high altitude, it was lamalam asar of Shesarabim. But certainly if the item would pass at low altitude, it would pass through the Aver Shesarabim in an area of lamata masar tfachim, within 10 tfachim of the surface of Shesarabim. All would agree that he is chayiv, because kluta kamishon chadamya, the item which is contained within the Aver of the domain of the Shesarabim, as within 10 tfachim of the karka, is kluta k'mishoncha, and it's considered to be hanacha. So there's two approaches, two possibilities, two options of explaining the machlekes between Rav Akiva and Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, if we see that Rab himself was uncertain as to the proper interpretation of the machlekes, so how come Rava was so sure that the author of our Mishnah is Rav Akiva? Why did he specifically say that it was Rav Akiva, not the Rabbanan? Perhaps the Rabbanan also agreed to the concept of kluta k'mishoncha, and apparently they also hold that there's no requirement of dalad adalat. Hanacha can take place, can be applied even when the item has not landed or rested on a makom chashav dalad adalat. Says the more, you're right. Basar the boy, after he had this question, hada of shitale, initially he wasn't sure, he was uncertain as to the proper, accurate interpretation of the machlekes. Is it this? Is it that? However, afterwards he concluded, indeed, Hadar if Shitale, he concluded that the machlekes between Kim and Rabbanan is concerning a case where the item passed Lamata Me'asara, and the machlekes is whether Kluta K'mishon Chadamya or not. Hadar if Shitale, the Savar Akiva, Kluta K'mishon Chadamya, Akiva holds that Kluta, being contained within the airspace of Shesarabim, is considered to be Hun Chadamya, and only Rav Akiva holds that way. The Rabbanan disagree with that. They hold that Kluta is not K'mishon Chadamya. So indeed, it's Rav Akiva who is the author of this opinion that Hanacha does not require a Makam Dal, and he is the author of our Mishnah as well. Okay, says the Gemara, is that so? The Amar of our Mishnah, the author of our Mishnah, is Rav Akiva, and therefore, when one makes a akira from the other person's hand, it's considered to be a legal akira. If one does a hanacha, puts an item into somebody's hand, that is considered to be a legal hanacha, even though there was no dalad adalat here. And who's the author of this shita? It's Rav Akiva. Says the Gemara, not so simple. V'dilma hanacha d'loibaya. Perhaps Rav Akiva will differentiate between hanacha and akira. Certainly, we see clearly that Rav Akiva holds that regarding hanacha, there's no requirement of dalad adalat. Rav Akiva says even merely having been caught and contained within the airspace of Shesarabim, that already constitutes hanacha. Hanacha doesn't need a dalad adalat. But perhaps akira is different. Akira is more significant. It is more crucial, and therefore, for akira, it needs to have a makam dalad adalat. Says the word of Dilma, perhaps hanacha d'loibaya, ha'akira baya. For akira, it certainly requires that it be removed, lifted from a makam chasha of dalad adalat. So you have no raya that according to Rav Akiva, akira does not either require dalad adalat. So if so, we don't necessarily have the author of our Mishnah, because in our Mishnah, both don't have the requirement. Neither akira nor hanacha. So what will be the difference between akira and hanacha? Says Taisus, because akira is sourced from the pasuk of Al Yetzi Shmim Kaimai. The pasuk mentioned earlier that the Torah tells us you can't be oiker an item from its place. So the concept of Mekaimai, that an item needs to have its own place in Makam Chashiv, is mentioned regarding akira. The pasuk is speaking about uprooting, lifting the chayfetz off the makam. So perhaps only there do we apply this requirement. The Farshim explain what is the svara to be machalik between akira and hanacha, because indeed akira is really the most premier element of the Maisa Hitzah. The Hitzah contains two elements. There's the Akira and the Hanacha. What is the more prominent element? Certainly it's the Akira. As we learned on the Daf Yomi, the Gemara tells us that Kol Akiras Chevetz Mim Kaimai Tan Hatzah Karilei. Why is the term Yitzias applied to the Maisa Hitzah, taking out an item, Maisa Achnasa, bringing in an item into the Rishus HaYachid? Says the Gemara, because Akiras Chevetz Mim Kaimai, whenever we uproot an item from its place, we detach it from its location. The term Hitzah is applied to that, because you're uprooting it, you're unleashing it from its environment, you're changing its designation, its use, by removing it from its current location. It's not serving you there any longer. It's not designated to serve in this location, but rather in the new location which you will put it. So the Akira is really the most crucial element, the most important element of the Melachas Hitzah, because if you go and take the item and deposit it elsewhere without doing the Akira, so it still has its former use, it still has its former designation, it still maintains its identity. You haven't really transformed the item until you do the Akira, until you uproot it and disengage it from its location. By doing so, you've detached it, you've nullified its designation, its use in this location. And now, when you deposit it elsewhere, you've given it a new designation. So the Akira is really the catalyst. It's the instigator. It's the thing that provokes the transformation process, the change of designation, the change of use of the Chayfetz. So the Mepharshim explain, since Akira is the more profound aspect of the Melachas Hitzah, that certainly requires Dal Dal Dal. Even if the Hanacha perhaps doesn't require Dal Dal Dal, wherever you place it, it's okay, without actually putting it into a Makom Chashav and attaching it to a new place, designating it anew, even if that was not a requirement for Hanacha. Nevertheless, certainly Akira should require a Makom Dalat, because Akira is the act of uprooting, of detaching, of transforming the object, nullifying its former use, its former designation. And that is only going to take place if the item was in a Makom Chashav, identifies with this place. And certainly in that case, the Akira transforms, changes, nullifies the use, nullifies its identity and its connection to this present location. And certainly the requirement of Dal Dal is in place. So therefore the Gemara speculates that perhaps we can differentiate, we can make a chiluk between these two items, between Hanacha, that perhaps doesn't require Dal Dal, but certainly Akira would require. If you find that Akiva doesn't need Dal Dal for Hanacha, how do you know that for Akira as well, he would not require it? Rashi says that we have a raya that actually Akiva differentiates between the two things, because Akiva says that when one throws the item through the Shisarabim, he is chayiv. Rashi says it appears that he's only chayiv once for the Malach of Hitzah, because he did the Akira from Rishus HaYachid, and by having the item pass through the Aviv Shisarabim, we say Kluta Kamishoncha, it's considered like an Hanacha. So he's chayiv for Hitzah. We don't find that Akiva is mechayiv too. One for Hitzah, and he really should be mechayiv another one for Achnasa. Why? Because if according to Akiva, Hanacha is the same as Akira, and just as Hanacha does not require Dal Dal, Akira also does not require Dal Dal. So when the item passes through the Rishus HaRabim and ends up back in Rishus HaYachid, not only was there a Hitzah that took place, because it was uprooted from the first Rishus HaYachid and it was Munach in the Rishus HaRabim when it arrived in the airspace, but there was another Malach that took place immediately afterwards. When it went ahead and continued on its journey back in the Rishus HaYachid, there was another Akira that took place, because in the Rishus HaRabim two things took place at once. There was a Hanacha in the Aver, but then and when it continued traveling and ended up in Rishus HaYachid, there was also an uprooting process. There was an Akira here, because it was uprooted from Rishus HaRabim, and then it landed back in Rishus HaYachid. So if Akira doesn't require Dalad Dalad, why doesn't this have the status of an Akira? And therefore, not only was there Maisa Hitzah, a Malachas Hitzah done, there was also a Malach of Achnasa done immediately afterwards. So Akiva should be Mechayiv two Chatois in the case where one throws an item across the Rishus HaRabim. Says Rashi, apparently Akiva holds that there's only one Chatas because Akira can only be done from a Makam Chashav of Arba al Arba. It can't be done from merely airspace. So therefore, in this case, there was no akira done when it passed through the Aver Rishus Rabim. Hanacha, yes, but another akira. And therefore, there's only one Chiyuv Chatas. So Rashi explains this is the basis for the Gemara's challenge. According to Rekiva, this leniency of Hanacha not requiring Dalad Dalad only for Hanacha, but not for Akira. Says the Gemara, Ella, you must say that the author of our Mishnah, which doesn't require Dalad Dalad, not regarding Akira, nor regarding Hanacha, is a different Shita. Ella, Marav Yosef, Hamani, Rebbe. Says the Gemara, which Rebbe? Hi Rebbe. Ilay Mahar Rebbe Desanya, Zorak, V'nach, Al Gabiziz Kolshu. If one throws an object in Rishus Rabim, we know that carrying or throwing an object 4 amas in Rishus Rabim is also another form of Lech Tzaitzah. So if one throws an item 4 amas in Rishus Rabim, and it lands Zorak V'noch Al Gabe Ziz Kolshu, it lands on a small ledge which is less than 4 by 4 tefachim, Rebbe Mechayev V'chamim Paitrim. Rebbe says yes, it's a Malach of Eitzah, a Malach of Maver Dal Dam Rishus Rabim, even though it didn't land on Dal Dal. Chacham say no, it needs to land on Dal Dal. So we see clearly, according to Rebbe, Hanacha does not need to be on a Makam Dal Dal. Taisus points out, the Gemara right away should counter and say, well, perhaps Hanacha is different than Akira. If Rebbe doesn't require Dal Dal for Hanacha, how do you know for Akira he won't? So the Taisus says, but the Gemara goes ahead and asks another kasha, therefore the Gemara doesn't dwell on this. Says the Gemara, okay, is this the Manda Amar? Hassam, says the Gemara over there, is actually another reason. There's another explanation why, according to Rebbe, he's chayiv. It's not because the Hanacha doesn't require Dalat Dalat, but rather for a different reason altogether. Hassam could be in and Lemem Kaman, because we're going to explain later, because Abai, as Abai explains. Damar Abai. We're speaking about a unique scenario. Hacha, the Ilan. We're speaking about a tree, Ha'im Rishus HaYachid, which is positioned in Rishus HaYachid. V'noif v'noit Rishus HaRabim, and its branch extends into Rishus HaRabim. V'zorak v'nocha noifoi, and this fellow went ahead and he threw an item in Rishus HaRabim, and it landed on the branch of this tree, whose trunk is certainly prominent and big enough, certainly contains an area of Dal Dal. So Rebbe holds, Rebbe Savar, on account of its trunk, the branch as well has a chashivas, has a significance, like a makom Dal Dal. Rebbe Savar Amrina, we say Shadi Noifai, we relate, we throw the branch basari karit after its trunk, meaning the branch also has a din of Dal Dal, even though it itself is very narrow, but since it's attached to its trunk, which has the size, the proper dimensions, the branch as well has the same din. Therefore, an item that lands on the branch is considered to be a munach on a mokum Dal Dal. So certainly Rebbe requires Dal Dal for Hanacha, but he considers this to be Dal Dal. For Rabbanan Savi, no, they hold no le'amrina shadi neifim. But Ikra, we don't say relate and attach the branch to its source, to its ikra, to its trunk, and therefore, since the knife, the branch doesn't have Dalad Dalad, so the Hanacha did not take place on a Makam Dalad Dalad, and he's Pater. So this is an entirely different type of situation. We can't relate this to our Mishnah. Even according to Rebbe, there's a din that Hanacha needs to take place on a Makam Chashav of Arba al-Arba. Rebbe simply holds that throwing an item on the branch of a tree is considered to be Dalad Dalad. Says more Elohar Rebbe, we have another place where Rebbe teaches us this halacha that there's no requirement of a Makam Arba al-Arba, neither for Akira nor for Hanacha. The Sanya is learned in the Brisa. Zorak Mishus Harabim Lishus Harabim Urishus Hayachid Be'emtza. One who throws an item across through the Rishus Hayachid. He takes an item and throws it from the Rishus Harabim, which is situated on one side of the Rishus Hayachid. He throws it through the Rishus Hayachid and lands across the other side into the other Rishus Harabim. Rebbe Mechayev. Rebbe says he's chayev. It's a malacha. V'chachamim paitrim. V'amar vida mashmol. Mechayev hay Rebbe shtayim. Rebbe says that this Maisa, this act consists of 2 malachas. Achas m'shem haitzah, v'achas m'shem achnasa. There's one malach of haitzah taking place, and in addition, there's also a malach of achnasa. Why is that? Because apparently, according to Rebbe, an item that passes through the airspace of Rishus HaYachid, even though it's still flying through, it's in transit, we consider it to be munach. It's as though it rested in the Rishus HaYachid, and therefore 2 malachas took place here. There was a hitzah and a hachnasa. Why? Because number one, there's a hachnasa here. The item that was lifted off the Rishus HaRabim and then passed through Rishus HaYachid, it's as though it landed there. There was a hanach on Rishus HaYachid, So the item was taken from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. This is the Malach of Hachnasa. In addition to that, there was also a Malach of Eitzah, because when the item continued on to the second Rosh Hashanah, so there was an Akira from the Rosh Hashanah, and then it landed in the second Rosh Hashanah. It made a Hanacha there. This is the Malach of Eitzah. So we have a total of 2 Malachas here. Alma says the Gemara, apparently loy boy Akira v'loy Hanacha al gabe makam dal dal. Apparently Rebbe doesn't have this requirement, not regarding Akira, nor regarding Hanacha. He considers the item that is merely passing through the Rosh Hashanah, he considers it as though it landed there, as though there was a Hanacha, and also as though there was an Akira, even though it didn't physically land on the ground. It didn't take place with a makam of dal dal dal. So indeed the Rebbe seems to be the author of our Mishnah as well, which doesn't have these requirements, neither regarding Akira nor regarding Hanacha. Says the Gemara, is that so? Ha'itmar Allah, haven't we learned the explanation of this brayso as follows? Rav Shmuel Dam Tavayu, lo mechayiv Rebbe ela b'rishus hayachad mekur. Rebbe only says his halacha regarding a Rosh Hashanah that has a roofed Rosh Hashanah. For example, a room with a roof over it. The Amrinan Beisa Commander Mal Yadama. We consider the room to have been filled up. The entire room is one self-contained entity. It serves one singular purpose. There's no difference between the floor, the roof, and the space in between. Rashi says it is a derech to fill it up with chafetzim, with objects from floor to ceiling. We use it as a storeroom. Therefore, there's no differentiation between the air space and the floor space and the ceiling space. Everywhere within that self-contained room is considered to be one makam shimush, designated for one purpose, one use. There's no differentiation between the actual floor or the ceiling and the space in between. Therefore, certainly an item that passes through this self-contained entity, wherever it may be, whether it's on the floor or it's merely passing through the air of this enclosed room, is certainly considered to have arrived at this rishus, into this domain, and considered to have rested there. And therefore, according to Rebbe, an item that passes through the bayis, that is mekura, is considered to have landed there. There's a hanacha there, and if it continues flying, we consider it to be an akira when it left the room and landed in the rishus harabim as well. So that's only because the room has a roof. But a place that doesn't have a roof over it doesn't have this concept applied to it. Therefore, in our case, of our Mishnah, which doesn't have a roof, Rebbe's halacha wouldn't apply. And certainly, there is a requirement of dal for akira hanacha. Says perhaps you suggest our Mishnah is also speaking about a roof, an area that has a roof over it. That's good for Rosh Hashanah. There's a yachid in our Mishnah speaking about a Rosh Hashanah that has a roof. Therefore, there is no requirement of dal. However, Rosh Hashanah mikur michayev. Can the Rosh Hashanah as well be speaking about a Rosh Hashanah that has a roof over it? In that case, it doesn't have the status of Rosh Hashanah, and there's no malachas of Eitzah that can apply to this case. Va'amar of Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Hamav Rechefetz. Dal Damas Rosh Hashanah mikur, one who carries an item 4 amas through a Rosh Hashanah that has a roof over it, pater. He's pater. It's not considered malach midbar, because it's not similar to the situation of the Degolim in the midbar, to the encampment of Klal Yisrael in the midbar. They didn't have a roof over them. Therefore, the definition of Rosh Hashanah needs to follow the definition of Rosh Hashanah in the midbar, which certainly didn't have a roof over it. And by us as well, in order for it to be considered to be a Rosh Hashanah, it can't have a roof over it. So certainly the Rosh Hashanah in our Mishnah is evidently not speaking about Rosh Hashanah Mekura. It doesn't have a roof. In that case, there's a requirement for dal. The concept of Rebbe only applies to a situation with a roof. But if our Mishnah doesn't have a roof, that concept wouldn't apply. And therefore, the halacha, the requirement of dal would still be applicable. You can't say that the author of our Mishnah is Rebbe. Rebbe is only speaking about a place that has a roof, and not our Mishnah, which doesn't have a roof. So in summary, at this point, the Gemara was looking for the author of our Mishnah that doesn't require a makim dal for akira or hanacha. First, the Gemara wanted to say that it was a Rekiva. The Gemara said, no, Rekiva is only speaking about hanacha. Hanacha doesn't require dal, but akira would require. So he can't be the author of our Mishnah. The Gemara proceeded and said, well, it's Rebbe, who says that the item that lands on a small branch is considered to be a hanacha, even though it doesn't have dal. The Gemara said, no, that's speaking about a unique case, where the trunk of the tree has dal. Rebbe holds that the branch has chashivus of dal on account of its trunk. Finally, the Gemara says, perhaps it's the other Rebbe, who says that an item passing through the Shayachit is considered to be munach, is considered to be akira, even though there was no dal. Says the Gemara, no, that's a unique situation where the place has a roof over it, and therefore it is basic command mal yudami. It's as though the room is completely filled. It's one entity. It's serving one single purpose, and therefore in that case, even the avir, the airspace of the room, is considered to have the same status as the floor space. But in a case where there's no roof, as in our Mishnah, where certainly the Rosh Hashanah can't have a roof, or else it wouldn't have the status of Rosh Hashanah. In our case, Rebbe's concept wouldn't apply. So who is the author of our Mishnah, which doesn't require a mokem dal for akira or hanacha in Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah? The Gemara will continue discussing this topic. To be continued.